Thank you, Ryan. Guys, thank you all for listening to me. I have not been here before, but I sure don't want to miss a meeting of a group of people that are engaged in issues in our community. And the Second Amendment, I can say, I think is a very, very important issue. In Alabama, anybody that's grown up here, going dove hunting, going deer hunting, going hog hunting, everybody here understands the responsible use of guns is a right that has to be protected. And more to the point, the Second Amendment is our protection not just against criminals, but against a government that could turn tyrannical if we don't keep those gun rights safe. And it is of utmost importance that we be allowed to carry weapons and to protect our Second Amendment as much as possible. Now, I want to say that as municipal judge, I deal with gun crimes. I deal with menacing. Menacing involves someone brandishing a weapon, pointing a weapon, or whatever. And I can say that as the decisions that I have made help legitimize the purpose of the Second Amendment Club. I can think of two examples right off the bat. I can think of one example, a fellow was in a standoff with the police. That man was found guilty of menacing by me, and I seized his weapons. Now that might make some of you upset, but let me tell you what, if I hadn't seized that man's weapons, he had a mental illness, and the next time that he'd gotten out, if that occurred again, then it could have been a shootout, and it could have been ammunition for the people that are trying to take the guns away. It is using common sense and being responsible with the commission that I've been given to uphold the laws of the state of Alabama. I have dealt with about 30,000 cases as municipal judge in Florence. I look forward to dealing with a bunch of serious cases as circuit judge in Lauderdale County, but I cannot do it alone. I need everybody's help in here, and I need y'all to tell 10 people that you know, because if y'all don't, I can't do it. I want to thank y'all for giving me 5 minutes of talking. I'll answer somebody's question. Carlos, what you got?
You don't agree with me on the slapping the politicians.
Okay. You will never hear me tell a lie to Carlos. Hey, really, thank you all very much.
I've got one for you.
Yes, sir.
You did say that the guy in your example had already been in a standoff with the police.
He had.
Okay.
That was the charge.
Yeah, I think we can all be in agreement. He probably didn't handle it.
That's right.
He's been accused of having him on the list.
Now, this is the fun part, guys. If y'all got something,
Hit him up. I usually do.
guys, it's been great to see y'all. Thank y'all. Thank everybody. I hope I didn't miss anybody. I sure don't want to hide anybody. Thank y'all. Rodney, the floor is yours.
Rodney?
I'm Rodney Pettis, and I'm like me, and I hope I haven't missed any of you. I've got around to each and every one of you. I'm running for license commissioner, and it's been a few months since I've been here, but I'm as just, I guess say, wanting to be a part of the Second Amendment as anybody. I'm a part of the Green Hill Neighborhood Watch, so, you know, if I'm out on patrol, I'm carrying a weapon. So, I mean, that's just part of it. I've been around security, law enforcement my whole life. Guns part of me as well. So, but as far as the license commissioner part of it, the biggest two things that I'm pushing for that I want to do if you elect me in the office is the first thing is I'm trying to get kiosks out into the county area. I want to be able to where you don't have to go down to the courthouse and wait in line and feel like, you know, it's almost like herding cattle sometimes to get through that line. So let's try to get, there's one in Rogersville, so let's expand it. Let's get it out into the county to where hopefully you can go to these areas and the line's not as bad. The best part about the kiosk as well is you can pay your revenue, your taxes, your property taxes on this same machine. So you're actually getting 2 stones there knocked out with one kiosk. So that's a good thing. The other thing I want to do is be able to put something simple, and the best way I know to describe it is, you know how you go to the, you see these billboards and it says, okay, the waiting time at the ER is blocked. Well, let's put that on the website or Facebook or both, to where we can do an actual running clock to where you can see the line, how long the wait time is right now. Right now, you don't have you don't know. You don't have a clue. You go down there, the line might be long, it might be short, you don't know. So I want to put a running clock on there where you can see it, to where if it's not beneficial for you to go down that right now, then you know to go back and look at that clock a little later on. So that's two things I want to propose and throwing out there that little easy things, but it's something that's going to be beneficial, hopefully, to all the citizens in the county. That's the goal. I'm a person that's going to roll my sleeves up. I'm going to work. I'm a person that's going to sit behind that desk, and if you come there, you won't see me back in the office playing Facebook and nodding off and all that stuff. I want to be on the front lines with the staff. That's just me. That's my work ethic. That's me. So I appreciate your time.
I got a question.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
The biggest problem that we have down there getting licensed right now, tags and stuff, is parking.
Yes.
Parking is awful. When you don't have a place to park and you gotta go around or you gotta park up the street, something needs to be done. Really, what I would do, I would take those parking meters down in front and, or get more parking somewhere where people don't have to park 2 blocks away to come get a taxi.
Totally 100% agree with you. The only thing that you're going to run into right there right now
It's a city.
is the city. In the city, you know, they're doing a traffic study as of we speak right now for UNA and the downtown area. And they've even talked about, I think it was in either yesterday's paper, talk about even limiting a 2-hour limit at the meter, even going through maybe even chalking tires to where they can see how long you've been there. So will that relieve it? I don't know.
Doubt it.
So I know the city, I know UNA's getting ready to add a very large, like 500 spot parking deck,
Can I say
think.
one more thing?
Sure.
A lot of people, and I didn't even know this till last year, that there is a drive-through.
Yes.
And that needs to be publicized because most people don't even know that.
Right. And that's something especially for anybody that's, like my parents. I mean, my daddy's 91 years old. You know, he can't walk that far. And that's something I told him, Dad, hey, if you need to get your handicap parking, or if you need to go get your tag, go through the drive-through. You know, how many of you knew there was a drive-through?
No.
Few of you?
But it's like McDonald's when you don't go to the drive, they give you right.
There you go. That's it. So the key is, and hopefully me working the front line with the staff will hopefully correct some of the communication issues as I've been campaigning. I've heard that I can communicate with some of these people. So, and I can be there in the front lines with you. So, yes,
Is the kiosk going to be for business license stuff? Or you still have to go in and get that?
that one I have to wait on the business license on that one. The biggest thing there is I at least want to be able to try and get the business license online first, and then hopefully incorporate it into the kiosk.
2 questions inside this one. How much does this kiosk cost?
I haven't checked on the price of them yet. I know the county has to go through the county commission into their budget. But I know there's, like I said, there's one in Rogersville and there's actually one in the license commissioner office now.
Where would those funds come from, and could you guarantee the taxes would not go up whatever those kiosks are put in?
I ain't gonna say guarantee it, but I would say there's no reason for them to go up, because either way, whether you come down there, whether you pay it online, whether you go through the mail, there's no reason for anything to go up, because most of that is set by the state, so there's no reason for it to go up.
There is a dollar fee, just like you would mail it if you
Right.
go up there.
And one thing that, you know, one thing I don't like, I know like right now, if you pay with a debit card, it's 3% that you gotta pay. I don't like that. Can I fix that? I don't know. That's something that I'm gonna have to look into. I think it's too high, if any. But I don't know if that's something that I can fix. If that's something I have to go through the county commission to fix. I'm not sure how that's gonna work. But I think 3% on a debit card is too expensive when they do 170,000 something transactions a year. It's ridiculous. So.
I think that's on a contract through the state, because I'm in probate offices and courthouses all over North Alabama.
Right.
And that 3% is, if you pay your taxes or get your tags at any courthouse in North Alabama, I know.
Right.
They charge that 3%. I think it's the processor.
They get a processing fee.
Yeah, but I think it's probably somebody's backdoor contract.
Bingo. Somebody's brother scratching somebody else's brother's side, so that's it. So, thank y'all for the questions. We vote March 1st. It's a little different this time. It's not June. So the election's coming up quick. So I appreciate you both. I do.
Right.
Don't forget to come back next month, even though we're across the water.
Well, thanks, Rodney.
So,
Thanks, Rodney.
thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Go have a good one, okay?
Have a safe drive, man.
Gotta go training on that.
I don't even drive safe
Stay
down
in the
there.
face of the flag, we'll go ahead and have the flag. We've got a flag,
It's failed.
it fell down. Just hold it up. There we go. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask Mr. Ed Bowman to lead us in prayer. He is the president of the Culver County Rainy Day Patriots Tea Party, has the state record for the longest bumper sticker of any kind.
Would you pray with me, please? Dear Heavenly Father, first we want to thank you for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, to this earth to die for our sins. Lord, I ask that you give us the wisdom as these men and women that come before us to ask for their vote. That we have the wisdom to pick the man or the woman that will follow you, and while they're doing that job, depend on you when those decisions come. Lord, we want to thank you for bringing us all together. Lord, if there's anything that is done here tonight, I hope we give you the praise and the honor and the glory. Lord, I ask that you, as we depart, bring us home safe. And I ask all these things in your Son's name. Amen.
We've got one more special, unusual treat tonight. We're actually going to have music tonight. Shadrach McGill here, he's running for U.S. Senate. Shelby. He's brought his daughter. And they're going to sing the national anthem.
They wouldn't let me do that. I'm just going to introduce the McGill girl. They've got a note finder on their phone that's important. They start off with the right kid and sing harmony. So it may take them a little while to get started. Are they okay right there?
Yeah.
They're going to be okay? They're going to sing our national anthem. Technology these days.
See by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held
that? I don't know.
You girls practiced since last week.
We did, but we messed up last time, so made it up.
That give me chips.
Okay. We've got Maria Fulmer here. She's running for state school board. District 7. And you said that goes from Lauderdale County all the way down into Tuscaloosa.
From Tuscaloosa and part of Jefferson County.
So we're gonna give her a few minutes to talk to us, tell us how good of a job she's gonna do for us.
Thank you. And my husband and I both are concealed carry. We are definitely pro Second Amendment. I actually have a shirt that our son made that has the, don't tread on these snakes. And wear it out in public proudly while I still can. I hope that I always can. I am a former Lauderdale County Commissioner for some of you might remember. And it might sound a little boring when I say I'm running for the State Board of Education, but I have a question for you. Raise your hand if you've heard of Common Core. I don't like it. I don't like it either. That is my main reason. It's not the only reason, but it is my main reason for being in this race. I want to see Common Core 100% completely repealed in the state of Alabama. I would only be one voice on a board of 8 members if elected. There are 2 other strong conservative voices on there right now, and they need help. So I ask for your support. Just remember, Fulmer, anti-Common Core. I don't like it. It is time to take back local and state control of our schools. The federal government has absolutely no business being in our business. That's it in a nutshell. If you don't know where I stand on that issue, then just please. I would appreciate your support. I appreciate what y'all do. I follow you and have followed you on Facebook for a while. And hats off to you. And I told Jerry, I said, nobody's going to walk in this front door and try to hold up this place and make sure that little sign that says over here. So anyway, appreciate what y'all do, and I appreciate your support in the March 1st primary. Thank
you. I'm Joan Davis, and Dan Pettis, I'm sure that all of you know who he is, but if you don't, he's running for chairman of the county commission. Dan Pettis is the most qualified person to get that job. And we here are representing him, and he said to tell y'all, we're very sorry. He had a previous engagement, he could not be here, and he loved coming out here for the Second Amendment Club, and he would appreciate everybody that would work with him, and we need him. We need him.
Will Smith also asked me to let everybody know that he had planned to be here tonight. His daughter has a surgery tomorrow. He had to get some things done, so he can be there for that. He was not able to make it tonight, but he did ask me to let everybody know that he had hoped to make it. Of course, we saw his opponent here earlier in grade. So, not an endorsement or anything, I'm just letting you know what the man relayed to me. Did we cover everybody else except for Shadrach? Yes, Carl.
I think there's some questions that will be asked.
Okay. Do we have questions? Who do we have questions?
I was going to ask you before. Carlos, I had 2. And Carlos asked me one for me. That you were pro, so you were pro school carry?
Yes, I am, and I explained and expressed that to you, but I expressed it too early. You better believe that if my grandkids, I have 2 in the public system, if my grandkids are in the public system, I'm going to feel a lot safer if we have people inside that school who are running for kids, praying, whatever you want to do to make sure that they know what to do in a situation like that. By all means, I will go to the record saying that.
So you're all for taking her over the different side?
Oh, yeah.
Still got one more.
Yeah, well,
about shooting sports and gun safety classes back in schools?
Set up a range. That's what I know they're
Bring back shooting sports. Branch of the federal government that's going to give you a rifle so you can do that.
Charter schools, we had a conversation with someone today. I know enough about it, but I'm not gonna say that I know enough about it.
Need to check up on that project, with that in there today, and it does not, we do not need to. That's something that you really need to do with.
I will, and I have to study on that. One thing that I will tell you, if I don't know something, I will check it out. My time on the county commission, you know, if I had someone come to me and they had an issue and I never made a decision until I looked at both sides. That the only way you can make an informed decision on any issue, unless it's black and white, which constitutional rights are black and white. But if it's an issue where you need to look at both sides, I will look at both sides, unless I said like it's something black and white. Public education has gone downhill. I mean, when you look at who is wanting to get control of our children's minds, and they want to implement, I don't know what grade you're in, but if you have 7th house here, how would you like for him to be told what course of study he was going to have beginning in 9th grade? Well, can I interrupt? Yes.
We do know this.
Oh, yes, it's part of 1 to 21. Yes, ma'am, I do, chapter 36. Yes, I am familiar with that, yes. And I know, you know, you've got the Bill and the Gates Foundation behind it, about $6 million. You've got a lot of folks.
The Bushes are big.
I mean, that Jeb Bush was very much in favor of it, yes. So it's, you know, we're losing our freedoms. I mean, Second Amendment, you wouldn't be having this press meeting if you weren't concerned that you were losing your freedoms. You all wouldn't be here if you weren't concerned that you were going to lose your freedom. It's not only the Second Amendment, it's education. Healthcare, how's that working out for us? I mean, that's all Common Core is going to be the public school education. And the educational system is what Obamacare is to the healthcare system. So the charter schools, yes, I'm studying that. I will not pretend to say something that I don't know enough to say about, but I definitely am checking that conversation today. Any other questions?
Why is who against it? Why are we against it? Because when you get a charter school, you'll no more have a public school. They do away with the public schools. Your teachers will never have tenure again. What they're going to do is they're going to have private people to come in and rule over a charter school. When that child goes into a charter school, it's going to be taken over like it has got a disability. And when in other words, the federal government will come in and put a number on that child, and from then on out, they're the ones that's going to be telling you. All you got to do is read it.
They've already canned tenure in Florence City Schools.
Be anymore, but the federal government will be teaching your children and telling them. Well, let me just say this. All I can tell you is about research. All you got to do is research. Look up charter schools and see what you got. Oh, they just passed it in Alabama. They passed it in Alabama last year that you get in charter schools. Right. Oh, they're not going to change that till they get them in. Athens has already applied to start their charter school right now. Athens. But if you really want to find out about completely what it's about, well, you really research that and find out for sure, because I've done a lot of research on that. but your federal government will be taking it over. Oh, it has, I agree with you.
Well, that's something that we may need to look into more in depth at a later date. I think we may run out of meetings.
Oh, so sorry. We'll talk later.
I was just gonna say, Shadrach can probably address that from a former state senator's perspective.
I have a feeling he's probably gonna get the chance to. Just a suspicion. Did anybody else have any questions for the folks in the call already? And just so everybody knows, everybody that's came in front of the group and spoke, as far as I know, is a member of the group. So if you think of questions later on, or if you're watching this video online and you think, man, I wish somebody had asked them that, you can always come on Shoals Second Amendment and pose these questions to them so that they can have a chance to answer, and you can have a chance to get your answer. So now we've got Mr. Shadrach McGill. He's running for Richard Shelby's seat for the U.S. Senate. One thing I want to point out about him that I personally have noticed, I can't turn on the radio or the television without seeing a Richard Shelby commercial or hearing it. I mean, they're practically every commercial. You don't spend that kind of money unless you're worried about something. On the flip side of that, every grassroots movement meeting that I go to, whether it's Tea Party meeting, one of our meetings, everywhere I go, he pops up. So he's paying attention to the grassroots groups and to the voting. I personally feel like that's something that we need. So I've been impressed, and I hope that impresses everybody else. Right?
Thank you. First of all, where would you guys prefer me to stand?
If you could, come up here real close to the camera where we can get the audience.
I was hoping for a table, but. Is this kind of central? Will this be okay? I'm not intending to talk to your back there, young man. You can go sit at my table if you want.
This is cute.
Oh, he will, he will.
First of all, thank you for coming out tonight. I'm so thankful for small group efforts such as this, although this is a pretty decent sized group. And I appreciate your concerns, and I appreciate all that you can do to help good, qualified candidates with conservative integrity get in office. I'm so thankful to see that the riches of the Bush family is not prevailing. Those guys have made money off of education, they've made money off of us, off our tax dollars, etc. They've just gotten wealthier and wealthier and want to gain more and more control. And I'm so thankful that we are seeing a season, at least on the presidential level, that money is not winning out. With that said, I also want to say thank you to my daughters. You've done a great job. For those of you who may not for those of you who may not be interested in my conservative values or policies that I'll speak on tonight, maybe my daughters could secure your vote. So they're my backup team. What I would like to do tonight is tell you a little bit about myself, touch on my testimony, just a little bit how I got involved in politics. And some of you that's heard me speak before may get tired of hearing me, but can I see a show of hands of who heard me speak before and who hasn't? Okay, so we've got mostly folks who have not heard me speak before. Who's never heard of me before?
Have you got two brothers?
I got a bunch of girls.
Are they called?
Meshach.
Yeah.
Get that a lot. Get that a lot. And good Christian parents.
Good.
And touching on I'll segue off of that into my testimony. I was raised 5 boys and 1 girl in my family up in Jackson County, Paint Rock Valley schools, K through 12 schools, smallest school in the state. So I grew up in very much a rural area, very much a deer hunting community, and still is. I still live in Jackson County. You familiar with Jackson County, sir? Beautiful county. And grew up, like I said, with 5 boys, 1 girl. Girl second to the youngest, and I'm second to the oldest. We grew up with on a farm type atmosphere, 80 acres, dirt bikes, motorcycles, four-wheelers. We were, as we got into our teenage years, we became terrorizers basically to the local community on our motorcycles and four-wheelers and things of that nature. Had a lot of fun in the sports, basketball, track, baseball, things of that nature, just like most of your children or most of you grew up. Went from there to college for 2.5 years after graduating from Pound Valley. In the process of transferring, I ran into my wife, Heather McGill, who's not with us tonight. We actually have 2 other children, aside from the 3 that are here with us at home, 2 little ones that she's with them. As my pastor says, my daughters, in case you're wondering, got their looks from their daddy because their mother still has hers. You need me to pour that for you?
Thank you, though.
What got me into politics? I was married, probably had 4 children. 4 children at the time. I had 4 children at the time. Thank you. Worked a business. I was self-employed. In high school, I was fortunate enough to take career tech, and I was a big promoter of career tech. I'm a product of career tech. Took machine shop. I turned that into a business where we did machining work for local farmers and in the industry, and we repaired and sold hydraulics. So, welding, fabricating, working with my hands, very much enjoyed that. Like I said, from what I was able to learn in the career tech for 2.5 years in public education system, I was able to turn that into a business later on in life. Had a machine shop for 7-8 years. No, I'm sorry, about 10 years. When in church, I was asked to help to come to a meeting that was supporting Roy Moore. Y'all remember Roy Moore running for governor in 2010? So I went to this meeting. I had never done anything political before in my life, other than just vote and simply work my business and try to feed the family. After going to that meeting, some things started turning inside of me. And watching the news and having more concerns with having children. Children will do something to you. Children will get you off of the motorcycles, off of the hobbies that you spend too much money on, away from the things, the TV shows and things of that nature that you shouldn't be watching. There's something about having children that brings some added responsibility and integrity to the home, so to speak. And of course, church as well. But I was walking through my living room, my bedroom, when I had what I've referred to as a political conviction, where I feel like God literally sat me down and showed me that the church has backed away from government, and we've allowed it to become what it's become. And so with that, I literally sat there and wrote a letter to the editor of our local paper. I had never written a letter to the editor before. I'm sure I was like maybe many of you. I was very much a political novice, knew very little about it, did not want to have a political conversation with you because I didn't want to reveal my political ignorance. Can anyone relate to that in times past? I'm sure all of you guys are political scholars, right?
Just opinionated.
Opinionated scholars?
No, just opinionated.
Just
We're not
opinionated.
scholars.
Okay. So with that, I wrote a letter to the editor stating, I believe it is time for the church to make local government its new mission field. Otherwise, we're going to lose the very nation that sends so many missionaries out. And some other things I had stated in there. But upon writing that letter, a gentleman had asked me later to run against Senator Lowell Barron. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of State Senator Lowell Barron. He was a Democrat incumbent for 28 years and considered by many in the state to be the most powerful man of the state of Alabama. And very corrupt, had his hands involved in literally anything and everything. Was estimated to have been worth $400 million. He built low-income housing all across the state for the last 25, 26 years in Mississippi and parts of Georgia. Guaranteed 80% occupancy in these homes that he built. So just in the banking industry, into everything literally. Contracts with the state, the businesses that he owned. He needed to go. I was asked to run against him. I prayed about it for about a month. and felt like the Lord led me in that direction to run. And after a very exciting campaign, I'll touch on it just a little bit, the Lord gave us the victory. We were competing against a little over $2 million, and we had raised about $175,000. And the Lord gave us the victory against the most powerful man in the state, in the eyes of men, at least in the district that we lived in. In that campaign, we had, no problem, we had 2 strippers come to our house in the middle of the night. The girls may remember that. We had a stripper come to our place, my place of work, my business, and we had the neighboring building that I rented for some time was rammed by a car. A lot of people thought that I was on business there. It was rammed by a car by a gentleman who'd been in prison for 5 years. I shouldn't say gentleman. And when he fled the scene, and when the law caught him, he didn't know why he rammed the building. He just felt like he needed to ram the building with his car, and went through the bathroom and destroyed it. Would have made it out the other side of the building, but he did a big I-beam. I heard the commotion from being the neighboring business, stepped outside, and after I realized what was going on, I thought and told my coworkers, I said, employee work with me, this guy got the wrong building. And so the Lord watched out for us. He protected us, very much so. Had a gambling lobbyist from Montgomery come to me and offer me $20,000 to back out of the race. I immediately called the ABI and FBI and had that investigated. We were both subpoenaed for gambling trial that was gambling investigation that was going on in Montgomery, where 4 of our legislators were indicted, and people being offered as much as $2 million for a yes vote on the gambling bill. And I was there in 2010. I had went down and watched the Senate in procession when they were taking up that bill, and after entering the race, and I watched it pass on the Senate floor. They literally wrote a Democrat in there who's has gone on to be with the Lord, but when got him out of the hospital and wrote him in there in a wheelchair and wrote on that bill, and they were able to pass it. And Scott Beeson, a senator who's considered the most conservative senator in the state of Alabama at the time when I went to Montgomery, was working with the FBI on that bill in the investigation process. He was wearing a wire, very much feared for his life many a times, but he was offered $2 million to vote yes on that bill. That's the kind of corruption that we had going on that people knew really very little about that was even going on. So yes, they do sneak things in under your nose, very much so. And ask me about the charter bill later. I'd like to touch on that just a little bit. Another interesting situation in the campaign efforts that we were in, where I had a contract, $50,000 contract on a piece of property that a couple was using as a restaurant. And they were in default on the contract, but continued to operate the business, and I was holding them to the contract. So we got a contract, you're supposed to buy the insurance, you're supposed to pay your bills on time, etc. And instead of doing what was right by our contract, Lowell Barron got with them and encouraged them to sue me and they did, for $1 million. That turned into another interesting situation, and that is I'm still fighting that battle. They immediately closed their doors, so I assume there must have been some form of payment to pay these guys just to go home, close the doors on the restaurant, and he put them on camera on 4 different major TV stations for 2 months solid. He ran commercials, calling me a crook, calling me this, calling me that. And ultimately what he ended up doing was making a lot of Democrats mad. They knew I'd never been involved in politics before. I was very much a greenhorn, very much a novice. And, just running because I felt like the Lord wanted me to run, wanted me to get involved, wanted me to educate myself as how we're governed as a people, and yet holding other elected officials accountable. So, after spending over $10,000 in legal fees, I decided to represent myself in this case, and have since then. And sometimes it's been good for me, sometimes it's been bad for me, but I'm learning a lot as I go. And I encourage you guys, learn as much as you can moving forward. Make that your new interest, your new hobby. The books that you pick out and read is how we're governed as a people and our legal process. It's very empowering when you can go before a judge in a civil matter and defend yourself. Very empowering. When you hire an attorney, you become a ward of the state. And as a ward of the state, the legal definition for ward of the state is an ignoramus. I don't want to be an ignoramus. I want to be able to represent myself. Now, it may come to a point in my lawsuit that I have to hire an attorney if it gets above what I'm capable of doing. But I do not like being labeled by our government as an ignoramus. So I'm very passionate about learning more as how we're governed as a people. I'm much more familiar with the state policy issues and questions. I'm now, of course, learning national policy issues and questions, and I'll try to answer as many as I can tonight. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. But I'll wrap this up shortly, and I'll get to a question and answer session. How are we doing on time?
We're okay.
We're okay?
We've got another 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. All right. A couple things I want to touch on while I was in Montgomery that I realized the Republican leadership had a hard time trying to figure me out. And I found out that I ended up fighting more with Republican leadership in Montgomery than I ever thought about, even with the Democrats. Democrats weren't my problem in Montgomery. It was the liberal-minded, liberal-leaning, kind of special interest groups, Republican leadership that I had a problem with. We need to hold those guys accountable. They need beat. The ones that've been there too long, they need beat. I'm a big believer in term limits. As you heard Jeff say earlier, I ran one term in the state Senate, and I'm asking for one term in the U.S. Senate to serve as an example to those guys who want to camp out up there. You know, my opponent has been there 36 years. He should have gone a long time ago, in my opinion. To me, it's the young guys that are able to get so much done. The vibrant guys that go in with backbone and no strings attached. But one of the things I wanted to touch on that I learned in Montgomery, I went in 2010 with a lot of new guys. Y'all remember the Republican sweep of 2010? The Democrats had controlled the legislature, had controlled the majority of the legislature in Montgomery for 136 years. And the Republicans in 2010, we made history when we went over, and not just with a majority, but we had a super majority in the House and the Senate. And I won't get into exactly what that means, but it means a lot more control over what gets passed and what doesn't get passed. It means Republicans were chairman over every committee. And I was chairman of the Small Business Committee. But what I was leading up to that I learned in Montgomery is after about 3 years, I noticed these strong conservative guys who went in like-minded, just as myself, I saw them start to soften. And I equate that to corruption. I started seeing them become corrupted. And in prayer, I asked the Lord, I said, what is it that corrupts these guys? Is it the money? Is it the power? Is it the prestige? Is it the women? Or is it a combination? What is it? And I felt like He showed me in that moment that it's when an elected official starts thinking about their second race. It's that second race that starts binding your hands. And that's the reason I desire to set the example of running one term and going home, serving in another capacity. When you start thinking about that second race, you start thinking about all the money it takes to win a campaign, win an election. And there's no limit. You don't know who your opponent's going to be or how much money they've got. And sadly, it is the special interest groups that fund most of the money in a campaign. It's not the individuals in the community that fund campaigns, except on the lower levels like you and I, sister. It usually comes out of our own pockets unless you're a powerful incumbent. So these guys, in thinking about their second term, started buddying up to the special interest groups. Hey, am I going to get that check from you this time? well, you got to vote like I want you to vote to get my money, And so in the committee meetings where they ask us to get the work done, if there is a bad bill comes through your committee, do not let it go to the Senate floor. Bill is introduced, it has to go to a committee, pass. After it's committee, then it goes to the Senate floor. You let a bad bill come to the Senate floor, and it's an embarrassment to the whole state. So in committee meetings, everything was just flying through committee. No matter how much I preached against it, it just passed right through. And I felt like I said, I felt like the Lord showed me it's when you start thinking about your next race that you start binding your hands and you start allowing special interest groups to tie you up, tie you down, and you no longer vote with a conservative backbone that you used to vote with. And I think that's why I think and believe that term limits is one of the most important issues that we face in this nation. And if we will not by law pass a term limits bill, then candidates who are running to be elected or wanting to be elected, incumbents as well, need to be agreeable, sign a pledge, etc., to term limiting themselves. Because even I cannot deny the temptation that it can place upon you to partner up with these special interest groups in order to gain financial funds. The temptation is there and it is very real. So with that said, I would like to, many other things that I learned in Montgomery, I can assure you I could go on and on, but I want to be sensitive to our time and I want to be sensitive to your time. One of the other important issues that I learned in Montgomery in serving was to listen to my constituents. For I am basically a disciple, I consider myself a disciple of my constituents. Because when I went into office, I knew very little, almost zero, about government and politics. And it was my constituents and conservative groups that educated me and established some of the conservative mindsets that I now carry on to the next level. So with that said, I want to open up the floor for questions. Does anyone have questions? Water right there.
Anybody have a question for Shadrach? Charter schools it is.
No, this is on something else. What you were talking about the corruption. Every time we've been to the State House to see our
Elected.
yeah, we can hardly barely get through the hall for the lobbyists. I'm talking about this is rubbing shoulders. There's nowhere to walk except for the lobbyists. So why can y'all not get out one of the biggest corrupt persons that's sitting on the highest chair there, who is already sitting in indictment for felonies and he's still sitting there?
You're talking about Mike Over?
Yeah.
Well, I think that'll happen. I think it's going to happen. And I hope if they can't do it on the floor, that his constituents will do it back home. But mentioning the corruption, there are over 600 registered lobbyists in the state of Alabama. Lobbyists are the special interest groups that come to your office and they want you to vote a certain way on a certain bill that they've got, or 2 or 3 bills that they've got, and they want to tell you all the good reasons why you should vote for their bill. And but it's always best for another lobbyist or a conservative group or individual to come in and tell you why you shouldn't vote for that bill. You get both sides of the story, but so often that's not the case. They only hear from the lobbyist. And you can't believe some of the legislation that comes forth down there. So over 600 registered lobbyists, very correct, and a bill that I'm very proud to have worked with and helping get passed. Before 2010, before the Republicans took over, there were hardly any ethics bills in the state of Alabama, any ethics laws. We desperately needed ethics reform. And so after the 2010 sweep, Republican sweep, Governor Riley, before he left office, immediately called for a special session where we went in and focused only on ethics. We passed 7 of the nation's toughest ethics laws that was tying our hands as legislators. Because prior to that, one of those lobbyists could give Lowell Barron Mike Hubbard, we'll use him, could give Mike Hubbard $250 a day cash unreported. That's over $91,000 a year. Now, however many lobbyists you can find, you get you 11 lobbyists paying you the maximum amount. That's over $1 million a year unreported. Now, tell me that's not as corrupt as it gets. And most people never knew this, never heard of this. Yes, sir.
The thing, you're the first, I think, candidate that we've had running on a national level that's come and visited us, haven't we?
I think so.
And the one thing I'd like to, is at the grassroots level, we are really annoyed with a capital A, substitute another word if you want to. We're really annoyed with how they're behaving in Washington. This is where the action is. This is how this should work. You talking to us, we talking to you. You know how we feel when you get up there. You doing what we want. You're our representative. Which is why it's a republic, not a democracy. What we want to get across to you is, yeah, we are annoyed. It's not going to be business as usual anymore. We're tired of it. It's time. So, that's why we want you to come here and keep talking to us.
Well, and I appreciate your passion, and I hope that all of you are just as passionate about your government on the federal level and local level. But I encourage you to channel that passion into effort. And guys like me, it is. I'm taking on an incumbent who has $20 million. I'm operating a campaign basically off my own budget because I'm not taking money from special interest groups. And so I'm funding my own campaign, and it takes getting out grassroots effort to do that. So what does a guy like me, if you find guys like me running for various positions that you, let me back up. If you find a candidate that you trust their integrity, you believe like they believe, you're like-minded, you want to help them get elected, there is lots that you can do. So many people are like, well, what can I do? They don't know what to do, so they do the same old thing they've always done, which is nothing. Call your family members. Tell them you've heard this guy speak. You've heard that guy speak. Call your friends. Talk to them about him at work. That's the best form of advertisement is word of mouth.
Put it on Facebook.
Put it on Facebook. Put them on your Facebook account. Ask your friends to share it. Twitter, if you tweet, ask your friends. Look, I've listened to this gal. I've listened to this guy. They're the real deal. We need term limits. This incumbent needs to go. Blah blah blah. And that's how a $20 million incumbent gets beat. It's a grassroots effort. Gets out there. They get motivated. Shelby doesn't have grassroots effort. Not unless he hires it. Not unless he pays for it. He's going to put his face when he is about 40 years old on 100 billboards across the state, or 1,000 billboards across the state, and commercial after commercial after commercial, and that's all he's going to do. For the most part, he'll go to his county meetings, that he has, and you ask him a question, and what color is the sky, and he'll talk, he'll talk about the trees for 20 minutes. Yes, sir.
Your other opponent, I've questioned him on this several times, Jonathan McConnell. That's the one that has refused to come to my group, but I can't get him to answer a question on immigration. And I've asked him, would you give them amnesty or send them home? And he says, no, I won't send them home. There's no way we can do that. Well, I've proved to him that it can be done because it's been done several times before. What is your stance on either sending them home or leaving them here?
I'm very passionate about sending them home. They have country that they came from, give them a free ticket back to it. And stiff consequences if they come back. We got to do, I don't know if a wall will secure the borders. If a wall is proven to secure borders, we need to build a wall. If a fence with high voltage will secure the borders, we need a fence with high voltage. Whatever it is. If we need to threaten to take over a portion of Mexico, if they don't control their own borders, whatever we need to do to get the job done, we need to get the job done. We have a threat these days. It's called the radicalist, Islamist extremists that are, for whatever reason, I don't know what we've done to tick them off, but they don't like us and they don't like Israel. And I think it has more to do with the God that we serve than anything that we have done to them. And they want nothing more than to kill as many of us, our wives and our children. They want nothing more than that. That's their ultimate goal in life. Well, I'm all for hurrying up and introducing them to those 70 virgins that they talk about once they die.
There you go.
That's the major reason we need to secure our borders, not to mention the other thousands of reasons that we need to secure our borders in relation to economy, the welfare system. They're sucking off our dime, so many of them over here. We have my mother's a nurse, my sister's a nurse, my wife worked at the hospital for some time, my grandmother's a nurse. You have illegals coming to our country to have their babies born. We had an anesthesiologist from India come to America to have her child, so their child could be an American citizen. And the nurse asked her, I won't say what nurse it was, the nurse asked her, why would you come to America? You're an anesthesiologist. Why would you come to America to have a baby? She said, well, I can go over here and have him for free. And then he's an American citizen, and so when he becomes 18, I send him back over here and he'll get free education, free college. Can you believe that? That's where our tax dollars go. We can't use that tax dollar to send them back home, keep them from coming in. Yes, sir.
So what would you do? Mitch McConnell said we're going to shut down the government. We're not going to shut down the government because of Planned Parenthood defunding it. Shut down the government to defund Planned Parenthood?
On the state level, I preached and preached. Guys, listen, I'm new here, but I'm telling you, I have studied the Word. You cannot get money ahead of morals. And no, you cannot pass legislation that brings morality to a people. No, you can't. But if you have laws in place that are immoral, unbiblical in the first place, then you need to do away with them. And so we introduced 7 pro-life bills the first year, 2011, and passed all 7 of them in the Senate. Boom, boom, boom. Just ran right over the Democrats who fought tooth and nail against us. And they got held up in the House. Basically not covered in the House, is my belief. I think we passed 1 out of the House that year. The next year, I think it was 1 other pro-life bill that got passed. We passed about 3 pro-life bills in my term there. And then this last term, they didn't even bring up a pro-life bill. And there's still lots and lots that the state can do in regards to that issue. There's not a more important issue to me than murdering the most innocent of innocent and calling it legal, calling it good, being okay with it. There's you know, I'll get off of that. My point was to say this: you cannot get money ahead of morals or morale as a nation and expect to be financially blessed. Yes.
I'm not asking you to endorse a presidential candidate, but out of all the 100 of them that's running, and I'm sure there's no millionaires in this room, who's, out of all the presidential candidates, whose tax plan do you see that will benefit us, the people, the middle class, that would benefit us the most out of all the presidential candidates?
Well, I definitely wouldn't tell you, Ed, that I'm a professional or extremely learned on the tax plans that are being offered out there. What I do know and what I do like is anything that's better than what we have currently is a plus. But I'm hearing good things about the fair tax. I'm hearing good things about the flat tax. I know Ted Cruz is promoting the flat tax and looking at it, comparing it to other tax plans. It's extremely conservative on a lot of the issues that I'm passionate about. It's extremely conservative on pro-life. It's extremely conservative on education, on gun control, on tax reform. The fair tax, there's some fair things to say about the fair tax plan as well. But there are some concerns there. I know with the fair tax, there's some concerns there with the flat tax. The flat tax, though, has been implemented in 20-something other countries, and it's kind of like the jump on the bandwagon kind of thing with a flat tax deal. It's been proven to work in other countries where the fair tax has not been implemented in any other country that I know of. There's another one out there that hasn't maybe caught as much attention. It's called the neutral tax plan that puts the control in the state's hands. I like the sound of that. The state determines what type of tax plan they want, and then they pay a percentage, a set amount to the federal government. So, you know, anything better than what we've got, I'm going to be a fan of. I think one statement put it this way: don't let a perfect plan be the death of a better plan. Does that make sense? In other words, it may take some baby steps to get us there to that perfect plan, but if we can implement a better plan than what we've got to get us heading in the direction of that perfect plan, then let's do that. And we took that approach with some of our pro-gun legislation that we took up on the state level as well.
I've got another question for
Yes,
you.
sir.
If you were elected to the National Senate, would you vote to repeal Obamacare?
Sir, you couldn't serve up a softball any easier. This is perfect for me, just right there. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the flat tax plan and the fair tax plan both repeal Obamacare, it's my understanding.
Yes, Carlos.
Carlos got a question. Well, folks, it's been good. Carlos told me earlier, he said, if you go to Washington, you won't be able to close your eyes without seeing my face.
That's a horrible threat, too.
Believe it or not, I have talked to you all night long without blinking. Yes, Carlos.
What would you do to try to repeal some of the gun laws that's already in place?
Anything and everything. You got any suggestions?
Yeah, go back to the first one and tear it up and tear them all up.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't get further to the right of me in regards to gun control, I don't believe. So whatever we can do to protect our Second Amendment right, I will be a fan of, as I was on the state level. Scott Beeson's bill that he brought, he gave consequences to your sheriffs and your deputies. I mean, that's as mean as it gets. You go try to pass legislation that gives consequences to your sheriff and your deputies and see what kind of fight you start. And I was a big supporter, promoter of it. I got mad when they stripped that language out of it.
Well, I knew where you stood, but I wanted to know the record for other people.
Appreciate the question.
Anyone else?
You were gonna tell us about the chart.
I was going to give her an opportunity to ask her question. Appreciate
I
that.
wanted to hear your, so you were in the Senate when it passed?
Yes, I was in this, no, not when it passed. No.
That's just been recent.
Let me say this. AEA hated me, except on this one bill. And I'm very passionate about education. I'm very passionate about what our children are being taught in our public school systems and what's being crammed down their throats and what they're not being taught in our public school systems. Therefore, I homeschool. I have 5 children and we homeschool. That's not easy for me to do. The state helps zero. I pay in the same amount of tax dollars as anyone else that sends their children to public school. I pay for those teachers. I pay for that curriculum. I pay for those gymnasiums. And we don't, you know, I tried to pass the Tim Tebow bill where homeschool kids and private school kids could participate in the public school athletics, you know, extracurricular activities. I think that's fair because we pay for it, but we don't get a benefit from it. I'm very passionate about education and making positive changes in education. But I'm going to tell you this scenario, how much time, am I on time? Can I hit the button on your phone so I can see what time it is? Oh, he don't want me to touch his phone. Okay. I want to tell you just exactly how it happened. When Republicans took over, Senator Brubaker was became chairman of the Education Committee. He had been a principal, he had been a teacher, I think. He homeschooled his kids. Good guy. I like Senator Brubaker. Has some very strong backbone on some important issues. Learned a lot from him. He was going to introduce the charter school bill. Are they closing on us?
No.
Okay. You let me know if I need to shut up.
They'll run us out.
All right. Got your gun?
We got plenty. Need to borrow one?
I'm good. It was the rave. Republicans were going to finally pass a charter school bill. And Democrats were heavily opposed to it. AEA was throwing money out there. They were doing all they could to stop it. It was coming up in committee, and I'm on the education committee. Was in my term. I served from 2010 to 2014, and I didn't run a second term. I'm on the education committee. The night before we're going to take up the bill in committee, where it would go to the Senate floor and pass with flying colors. I call Senator Brubaker and I say, look, I don't know what it is, but I got a bad feeling about this charter bill. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't know, but I don't think I can vote for it. He said, man, you know, I got to get this passed. I said, you know, I understand, but just letting you know, I may be a no vote on this thing. He said, well, I understand. You keep praying about it some more. So, I mean, this was 11 o'clock at night, and I'm in my motel room. And next day, all the TV stations are there. All the reporters are in the room. It's jam-packed. All special interest groups are there. Boards of education, Pouncey, and superintendent of the state. All those guys are there. And I asked Senator Brubaker, put me at the bottom of the roll call when you vote for this thing. Who knows what I was doing? You might know what I was doing? No. You know, the roll call, Senator Brubaker, yes or no, you know, Senator so-and-so, Senator Figure, you know, they go down the list.
By the time it gets to you, it's not important.
Right. I was counting votes. Because I did not want to have to be the issue. But guess what? We get to the bottom of the list because there are quite a few Democrats in that committee and a few Republicans that were in favor. That were maybe in opposition, but it comes down, it's tied at the end, and I'm the last vote. Senator McGill, how do you vote? And I literally probably take 10 seconds, and I vote no. Didn't know why. Didn't know why. It didn't even have a reason. I killed the Republican leadership's charter bill. Killed it. Oh, it was a fit, but man, I was AEA's hero. I was their poster boy for about 10 seconds. So, I don't know why I voted for it, so they had to start the process back all over with the bill. The bill ended up failing that year. 2 weeks later, oh Lord, you know, I'm killing me down here. But I felt like the Lord, you know, did not want me to vote for that bill. 2 weeks later, I get a 60 minutes video sent to me on what is known as the Gulen movement, where this Muslim from Iran or someplace over there owns over 50% of the charter schools in America.
Exactly right.
Known as the Gulen movement.
How do you spell that?
Just like it sounds. ISLA. And hires, subject to hiring Muslim math teachers, even in one case a Muslim English teacher that they're talking about who couldn't even hardly speak English. If you got the money, you can start a charter school. You want to start a charter? And I told them, I said, I don't see how we can pass a charter school bill that does not discriminate. And you have to discriminate against the Muslims in order for me to vote for a bill like that, or to support a bill like that. Now, I am all for other methods of educating our children. I am all for homeschooling, I'm all for private schooling, church schools, and etc. But charter school bill has a problem. That concept has a problem, in my opinion. I'm for vouchers. I can't think of a better thing than for the state to hand you back your money that you paid in to educate your child in the tune of about $5,000 is what they spend per child on the state level, plus federal matching monies, to decide where you want your child to be educated if you don't want to educate them in public system. Imagine how many churches could start healthy, God-fearing church school systems when a child can bring that much money to the table. My kids, I'd be bringing $25,000 to my church saying, hey, start us a public school. Now, how beautiful is that? We tried to pass a voucher bill. Now, granted, there is the need for public education in our system and society as we know it today. I wish the church never dropped the responsibility. I wish the church never handed the responsibility over to the government. But the church has handed so many responsibilities over the government, we find ourselves in the pickle that we are today. And if it takes baby steps or if it takes major steps to get us back to some healthier means of educating our children, I'm all for it. Any questions on the charter school bill? I don't know how it got started, but I know who took over. His name is Julian. Pardon me?
You don't know anything about qualifications for a charter school?
Now, charter school is not a private school. Yeah, but it's like exactly what he said, the ones
You have to go
that
through the process of establishing a charter.
Yeah.
And they did put some now they passed the bill this last year. I wasn't a part of that. And they did put some strict guidelines in there. They tried to pass a bill that would keep the Muslims out of it. I don't see how they could possibly be successful. And I talked to Senator Paul Sanford in the Huntsville area, and he said he don't think they were successful in doing that. But they limited, I think they were only going to allow just a handful of charters in the first year. I don't know how many the next year. There were some guidelines of how, there were performance guidelines of how your public schools were performing, I believe. As to whether you could start a charter or not, things of that nature. In other words, if your public schools was doing poorly, I believe that was one of the qualifications you had to have before you could establish a charter in that area. Any other questions, or do we have time for questions?
We're running close on time. There's one more point I'd like for you to touch on.
Okay.
The one argument that I've heard from Richard Shelby fans is that we would be trading in a senior senator for a rookie senator. Can you touch on that just quickly for us?
Well, what I've said time and time again is seniority gained us Mitch McConnell. And I don't know any conservative that likes that. I'm not too crazy about our Speaker of the House. Really don't care for him that much at all.
So why are you wanting to go up there and just spend one term?
I just believe that's the what I'm supposed to do.
That's your term limit, is one term, one person,
Six years, yes, sir. And then look at a different office, serving in a different capacity, or going back home to my family, so to speak. They get up there and they get disconnected, stay too long, get disconnected with their family, get disconnected with the citizens, and it's just not a healthy environment to stay too long in. So, well, you may get rid of a good man. Well, you leave him in there, you may corrupt a good man. To me, it's like I said earlier, it's the young guys that seem to be getting the most done. Look, two of our leading Republican candidates for president are two of the youngest guys in Washington. Served the least amount of years, and yet they're leading in the polls, for president. So I think it's very much an anti-incumbent mindset from people out there. Again, I'm Shadrach McGill, wife of is Heather McGill of 16 years. We have 6 children total, 5 still at home, 1 adopted who's older, out of the house. Blue collar worker, most all of my life for the most part. Grew up like maybe many of you grew up. Not independently wealthy by no means. We have to budget to make the ends meet and pay the bills, but we pay the bills, and I think we're not asking too much to ask our government to do the same.
But Jeb Bush has got all those millions, and it's not really community.
I wish that were the case in my race. We'll see. I may have the least money out of all of them, but that's okay. So I would ask for your vote, ask for your consideration, and if you consider me and agreeable, I would ask that you tell people, tell your family, tell your friends, and look us up on Facebook at Shadrach McGill and Heather McGill. My campaign, I'm sorry, my website is Shadrach 2016, where you can pledge support if you would like. If you got an extra $1 million laying around, I could use it.
We all could use it.
But thank you very much for having me tonight. Thanks so much for being patient, coming out, and God bless you. And I pray that we take our country back over.
We essentially do need to get the water in.
Did I miss anybody that's running for an office tonight? Anybody running for dog catcher or anything like that? Are there any other Pettises in here?
Their education system's got rich on all.
Did everybody that wants one get a raffle ticket? And does everybody have a blue door prize ticket?
Yes.
Everybody that's here should have a blue door prize ticket. We're going to draw. We do the 70% drawing on the raffles, and you can use this at your choice of local gun shops. Right now, it looks like we're going to give away, if my math is working right, we're going to give away $100 tonight to somebody. Maybe a little more if more people buy tickets. We'll draw for those last.
I'm here.
Are you going to draw some tickets? Is that here? Okay. If anybody does not win tonight, this is my daughter Lena. She's
You
sick.
can want me all you want.
Yeah, she's going to draw. She'll be available for butt whoopings at the front door for everybody that didn't win.
She'll also be available for a tip, right?
Don't actually want me.
And
Bribery does work.
Mama Susan, if she draws your ticket, you know what she wants.
All of our door prizes are up here at the front on top of the,
Oh yeah, you know what
the dessert cooler over here.
Brownies.
We've got some that were donated from Carlos from Psychotics Hydrographics and Double Welding.
Kenji's here.
I donated again from J&L Woodworks and Electrical. We've got some stuff from Ducks Unlimited up here. Ed has brought us a nice t-shirt from his tea party. The Colbert County Rainy Day Tea Party Patriots, North Alabama.
CCRDP, TP.
You're going to use a whole roll of vinyl for every bumper sticker. It won't fit on contact card. Okay. Throw one out. And if I call your number, just come up here and pick which one you'd like to have. This is the blue tickets. Last three numbers, 829. 829.
Oh my God.
Pick what you'd like off the top of the dessert cooler.
Bring on you, tell them.
Here you go. Come on. You gotta keep up, you'll get fired. 802. 802. All right. Next kid. $837. 837.
That'd be me.
That'd be you. Oh, you're disqualified for being part of the advisory board and all.
You're disqualified.
Negative. No.
You're disqualified. Your
Ain't
daddy
happening.
said.
You're disqualified.
825. 825. So, is that you, Sue? Oh,
Donna.
I don't put my glasses on, so I don't start.
no. I hope this makes up for me being late to work.
Hey, your personal favorites.
Be mad at the car wash.
You can't be mad at me. Up there.
821. 821.
That's Jody.
The advisory board's racking up tonight.
Not sure it's mine or my wife's, but
Doesn't really matter, does it?
no, mine's hers or hers is mine or something like that.
Well, what it is what's yours is hers and what's hers is hers.
Yeah, that's the one.
The judge told me that. Who's next? There you go.
Think
You
I'll
do have
leave.
more than one thing over there. Yeah, he's trying to
I
get
guess,
one.
yeah, there's
Like three.
3 more. I got
What did you do? Take the card?
I thought they were all, I thought it was like a gift card.
No.
No, it's,
No.
no, you can pick something up.
One more.
Give me a little bit hard time.
One. This is the last thing.
838.
Yay. I don't have to take anything.
Really? Really?
It's yeah, that's it.
Here. Give Gimpy his hat.
Look, don't be mean to him now. He can't help it.
I got one at my house.
Somebody was mean to him, banged up his arm.
He doesn't talk about that in public.
Hold on.
No, I got that.
We're going to the red raffle tickets now. This is gonna be for $100 unless somebody else wants one.
Hey, nobody can blame me. It's easy.
Last chance if anybody wants a red raffle ticket.
Nobody can blame me or the little kids. It was Izzy. She's strong.
Hey, make sure we get Brandon's out.
I threw his tickets away. Okay, reach up real high and get one where you can't see what you get.
I'm too short.
We know you're tall.
063. 063.
Well, that's okay, just press it.
Did you get it?
I believe my wife.
You think so, huh? Well, guys, I want to thank everybody.